I worked at a theme park one summer during college, mostly on closing shifts, which meant I was there late at night after the park had shut down. Once the guests were gone, the whole place felt completely different. There was no music playing and no crowds anywhere, just empty walkways, flickering lights, and rides sitting still in the dark. One night, I was assigned to help shut down one of the older roller coasters in the back section of the park. It wasn't used much anymore, and most of the time only maintenance staff went back there. Part of the closing routine was running a final test cycle with no passengers on board. You turn the system on, let the cars move through the track, and make sure everything shuts down properly. I started the cycle and watched the empty cars roll out of the station. At first, everything looked completely normal. Then I heard screaming. It wasn't mechanical noise or metal grinding from the track. It sounded like real screaming. I ran toward the track and saw one of the cars passing through a turn. It was completely empty, but the sound was still there. I shut the system down immediately. The ride stopped and the screaming stopped with it. Later that night, maintenance told me that someone had died on that ride years earlier during a malfunction. They said the ride was mechanically fine and had passed every safety inspection since then. But they also said no one likes working that section of the park alone at night anymore. My sister worked character costumes at a theme park, the kind where people wear full-body suits with giant heads and masks that hide everything about who's inside. They were mascots, cartoon animals, and smiling characters that were supposed to make kids feel safe and happy. One night she stayed late to help clean the costume storage area after the park closed. It was a long hallway lined with hanging suits, racks of gloves and boots, and shelves filled with oversized character heads that all stared forward with frozen smiles. She told me it already felt wrong being back there alone. Not terrifying, just uncomfortable, like the room didn't feel empty even though it was. As she finished locking up one side of the hallway, she heard movement behind her. At first, she thought it was just fabric shifting or air moving through the building. But then she heard footsteps. When she turned around, she saw one of the mascot suits standing upright at the far end of the hallway. It wasn't hanging on a rack. It wasn't leaning against a wall. It was standing like someone was inside it. She assumed it was a coworker trying to scare her. She even laughed at first and called out, telling them to stop messing around. But no one answered. The hallway stayed silent. Then the head of the costume turned toward her. Not suddenly, not aggressively, just slowly, like it had all the time in the world. She said that's when fear finally hit her. She took a step back. The costume didn't move forward, but it didn't move away either. It just stood there, facing her. She ran. She didn't look back, didn't call out, didn't stop until she reached the main corridor and the security office. Security checked the storage room that night. They searched every aisle, every rack. The suit she described was hanging exactly where it was supposed to be. Empty. No one else was in the building. When she asked how that was possible, one of the older workers told her that years earlier, a worker had died in that storage area during a late night shift, collapsed alone, and went unnoticed for hours. They found him still inside one of the costumes. She quit 2 weeks later. She never worked another night shift again. Most people don't realize how big theme parks really are behind the scenes. There are underground tunnels, service corridors, and staff passageways that guests never see. I found that out when I worked night security one summer. One night, I was sent to check a motion sensor alert in one of the lower service tunnels. It was one of the underground corridors used for moving supplies and staff after hours. The tunnel was narrow and poorly lit, with long concrete walls and a ceiling that felt too low. Every footstep echoed in a way that made the space feel longer than it really was. As I walked deeper into the tunnel, I started to feel like I wasn't alone. Not because I heard anything, but because the silence felt heavy, like pressure in the air. Then I heard footsteps behind me. I stopped walking. The footsteps stopped too. At first, I thought it might be another guard or a maintenance worker. So I called out, but no answer. I turned around, but the tunnel was empty. I kept walking, trying to convince myself it was just my imagination. But the feeling didn't go away. Then I heard breathing. It didn't sound like ventilation or airflow. It sounded close. Too close. I felt it behind me, even though I couldn't see anything. My chest tightened, and that instinct to run hit me all at once. I started moving faster. The breathing followed. I broke into a run. The sound stayed with me the entire time. I didn't stop until I reached the stairs and the main level of the park. Later that night, a supervisor told me that part of the tunnel system used to connect to an old attraction that was shut down after a worker died during construction. He said the worker fell into an unfinished section and wasn't found until hours later. They sealed off the attraction. They blocked the main entrances, but they never filled in the tunnels. They just closed the doors and left the underground system there. Now, whenever I hear footsteps behind me in empty places, I don't stop to check anymore. Because some spaces don't need to be haunted to feel wrong. They just need to remember what happened in them.